Happy Valentine's Day. Welcome to the last day of the 11th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. It's presented by Northeastern State University. I'm Bob Ailes. I'm your moderator for the session. And don't forget, all of our sessions are closed captioned. We have Michelle, who's been doing all of the captioning for the sessions, who's terrific. To view her handiwork, simply click on the closed caption icon on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. Our session today is customizing OER to improve student engagement and success. We have with us Kathy Ebert and Ginger Biddle. Is it Biddle or Biddell, Ginger?
Biddell.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna get it right. Okay, Kathy is currently a program experience manager for the College of Business and supporting healthcare management and IT management programs. And Ginger is the manager of the development team for the College of Business at WGU Western Governors. And you presented for us before, haven't you, Ginger?
Yes, I did. Not last year, maybe the year before.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Okay. But, yep. Well, we're looking forward to your presentation, so let me turn it over to Kathy and Ginger.
Great. Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be back presenting. Ginger and I presented this at the online learning conference last April, so we're happy to be back with an update kind of on our information. So I'm going to kind of get us started here just a little bit before Ginger goes into some details, but I've been with WGU about 4 years. It'll be 4 years in April. I live in Florida. We're completely online remote workforce from a faculty standpoint at WGU. My current title is Program Experience Manager, but when Ginger and I worked on this project together, I was a curriculum program manager, managing curriculum. And I'll let Ginger do a brief introduction of herself.
Hi, so my name is Ginger Biddell, as you've heard, and I live in Western New York, a little bit north of Buffalo. As Kathy said, a lot of our faculty and, I don't know, probably half of our workforce, at least at WGU, are remote. So I live in New York. I've also been at WGU about 4 years. Kathy and I started almost, I don't know, a couple weeks apart. My work anniversary is also in April. And I am currently managing a team of assessment developers, instructional designers, and instructional technologists. But when I worked on this project, I was, I think, actually an instructional designer at that point, and then maybe actually during the process moved to also the curriculum program manager position that Kathy and I were doing that together for a while. But we're growing a lot here at WGU, so there's often like a lot of movement and promotion. So, it's pretty normal here for people to have had several positions.
Thanks, Ginger. Yep. And so we at WGU we're completely competency-based education type university. That's all we offer our CBE courses. Ginger and I work in the College of Business. We have 3 other colleges: College of Health, Teachers College, and IT. Business College is the largest college. We have about 40,000 students. We were established in 1997, so we're fairly young. Our mission, just to share with you, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background to set the tone for what Ginger is going to go in depth and talk about, and why we do things the way we do, and how we used OER the way we did, and the importance of it to us, and our results. But our mission is to improve the quality and expand access to post-secondary educational opportunities for individuals to learn independent of time or place, and to earn competency-based degrees and other credentials. that are credible to both academic institutions and to employers. Total enrollment in the college is about 119,000 at this point. So you can see the sheer volume of what we might be dealing with as we look at our courses and curriculum. Our student, just real brief, this is from our last stakeholders report. We had 110,000 full-time students in the college. 80,000 of those work full-time, and 71% of those students come from underserved populations. So important to understand. We at WGU also have one master course, one course for all students. So we have cohorts that start monthly. New course versions, it's important to understand too that anytime we make a major addition to a course, or even sometimes a moderate addition like change an LR, a learning resource or a textbook, that the course will reversion and all of our new students will get that newer version. Students in the existing program with the older versions will still get that version in some cases, but not all. We can have anywhere from 1 to 4 versions of a course exist at one time. Which is a whole nother story and a whole nother presentation, by the way. Our terms are 6 months. Students usually are asked to complete 12 CUs, and when I say CUs, it could be comparable to credits. It's interesting to note in here that our students pay a tuition for 6 months, and they can take as many courses as they want. If they complete the 12 CUs that were required in that term, and there's time left in the term, we advance more courses in. We've had students move through some of these courses very quickly. Our programs are made up of a minimum of 120 credits, CUs. They comprise of our business core, our general education courses, and the program core. Business core usually will be around 53 to 71 credits. Our general education courses will be anywhere from 30 to 39. And then the program core range anywhere from 19 to 29 CUs. We have a student-centered faculty model, AKA what we might call a disaggregated faculty model. We take a regular institution's faculty's job description, and line by line, there's probably somebody identified that is just doing that job as a full-time job, that line item in the job description. And in some instances, it could be even more. Just to describe what a typical faculty model would look like when we're redesigning a course and working with curriculum, we have our own curriculum developers like Ginger and myself who design the programs, materials, and assessments. We have course instructors or our SMEs, program mentors. Those would be maybe guidance counselors or student success coaches. And evaluators. What's unique to us as well is that our course instructors do not grade performance assessments. Our evaluators do, and it's a totally separate department. So the project we undertook, it was just over 2 years ago. So we have some nice data to report on for you. We were charged with redeveloping 5 of our business core courses using OER. Our timeline that we were given to do it was 6 months from design to the launch of the course, which was about 12 months reduced from our normal time limit. Usually it would take us anywhere from 12 to 18 months to redesign a course, which is a long time. The impact was steep. We had about 36,000 students enrolled in these 5 courses in the first year. The project goals, we were charged with modular design, chunking out the content so our students can consume it in small doses. We would also be able to pull chunks out or modules out and easily update them and put them back in the course. We were transitioning to WGU's Acrobatic platform. We were moving to OER. We wanted to make sure that we had complete ADA compliance. And we wanted to improve student outcomes, which I'll go into more detail in a minute. The courses that were selected were Principles of Accounting, Principles of Finance, Business Law, Microeconomics, and Intro to Business, which formerly, we renamed to Fundamentals for Success in Business. The team consisted of these titles. Most of these were all, again, considered faculty level positions. As you look at all these titles, there could be multiple designers and assessment developers involved. The total number of folks involved in any one course development would be about 14 to 17 people, if you can imagine them, getting them all in a meeting. I'm going to let Ginger take over from here, and she's going to describe the stage 1, the analysis and design.
All right. I wanted to stop for just a minute, though, to see if anyone has any questions about the information that Kathy presented so far. Give you just a second to type in the chat if you have any questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead then. So as I said, when I was working on this project, at that point I started the project as an instructional designer. And so I'm just going to lead you through the process that we used. The first stage was just, as a part of design, was analysis. So at the beginning of the project, there was a sub-team. It wasn't all of the people that Kathy showed you on that slide. It was probably about 5 of those people first conducted some research and an analysis before they started working on these courses. They began by researching 5 peer institutions. And by peer institutions, I mean online institutions that serve a similar population to the population that we serve. And also researched 5 aspirational institutions so that we could gain an understanding of what content should and shouldn't be included in the course. They also worked to gather student profiles, which included identifying demographics like income, home community type, employment status, gender, age, risk category, and also the consideration of the programs that the students were enrolled in. The courses that we worked on were business core courses, but students enrolled who would be taking these courses, they could have been in our BS of Healthcare Management, BS Information Technology Management, BS Human Resource Management, BS Health Information Management, BS in Marketing, or BS in Accounting. So we wanted to make sure that we were taking that into effect. And also, this is something that we did differently that was, I guess, for the first time, is that we really had a discussion about and identified the problems. For each course, we brainstormed problems to be solved so that we could address them in the design and development of the course. And what I mean by problems to be solved, for example, one of those problems would be low interest in the subject matter. The course that I worked on was the accounting course, and as you may have experienced or you can imagine, marketing students or healthcare management or human resource students sometimes have a hard time coming into an accounting course and seeing, like, why do I have to learn this? So they may have low interest in the subject matter. So that was something that we specifically were trying to address in our design to try to make it more engaging and to help students see right from the beginning of the course, how accounting can be used in many different disciplines of business. Other problems to be solved included math anxiety, low engagement, low persistence, and students maybe having an ineffective approach to the course content. Also, in this stage, we drafted an assessment plan for the course, and the assessment plan included both formative and summative assessments. And the next stage of design was where we really dug into the specifics of the course. So we had a course design document where for each module, we targeted the cognitive level that we wanted the module to be leveled at. We drafted a module level learning outcome that was directly tied to the assessment. So our high stakes assessment directly assessed at the level of the module level outcome. We also drafted enabling outcomes, which were not directly assessed in the high stakes assessment, but they scaffolded the learning within the module, and the formative assessments might be tied to either the enabling outcomes or the module level outcome. And this next part is something, again, that was new, that we did for this first time in this project and have continued to do in future iterations of this process. For each module, we had a really deep, detailed conversation about exactly what content, concepts, and vocabulary were in scope for the module, and identified things that were definitely outside of the scope. So for example, you know, something out of scope might be something that would come in the next course. So it was, you know, a little bit too advanced for this course, or it might even be something that was covered in an earlier course. So we wanted it to be out of scope for this specific course or module. We also drafted a sample assessment item, so that, you know, this is in design and the next phase was going to be development, and we wanted to kind of capture what we were thinking when, you know, at the time of design, that the assessment item might look like. So we drafted sample assessment items for each module, sometimes multiple. And we also had a discussion about and logged some of the assets that would be needed for the course, for the module. You know, specifically, you know, obviously we would need text, but, you know, in some, depending on the content, you know, would we need multimedia, or whatever assets we might need. And then we also started doing some preliminary open education resource identification and selection at this stage. While we were having the conversation, we were also, you know, in the background in between meetings, trying to see what possible open education resources we could find. And we logged that in our design document. All right.
Sorry, I was just answering somebody in the chat. Yes, it's the ADDIE model.
Yes. Yep. Very good. So then the next stage was course development. And this, you know, I was talking to Kathy earlier, we were kind of going over this presentation. This was a really challenging process for our teams. You know, but then the payoff is big, because you learn, whenever you have something that's really challenging, that means that you have an opportunity to learn a lot. And we definitely learned a lot during this process. So we use an agile process to develop the courses. We developed one unit of content and assessment at a time. And a unit, you know, depending on the course, depending on the unit, some units had one module of content, some units might have 3 or 4 modules of content. But, and when we were, so in developing, we basically, so we did this in Word document templates, and we basically came up with the curriculum. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a slide, but so we came up with the course content, so the curriculum. We also drafted or wrote formative assessment items and high stakes assessment items, all at the same time. So, you know, when we're working on module 1, we're writing the curriculum, we're writing the formative assessments, we're writing the high stakes assessments, all at the same time. We use open education resources. We use some of the content the way we, you know, the way it was published. Some of it we updated or revised, and we also added other resources when that was needed. And again, I think I have a later slide where we'll get into that a little bit more. So then once the module content was written, we had the internal team review it. Then we sent it to our editors and our QA team. The QA team checked for alignment to make sure that the content, the curriculum was aligned with the formative and high stakes assessment. The editing, you know, went through for grammar, punctuation, things like that. They sent their findings back to the development team, who went through all of their comments and, you know, made changes or decided, you know, to not make changes, and finalized the course content and assessment in Word, in the Microsoft Word templates. Then they sent it to another instructional designer whose role was to build the course in the Smart Author platform. And then once, the unit was built, the QA team, the editing team, and the development team reviewed the content in the platform also. And the reason for that, for example, editing, it seems like, well, they edited it once, why do they need to edit it again? Well, sometimes when things are getting copy and pasted and, put into a platform, things can get missed. So we wanted to make sure that we went through and looked at that again once it was in the platform. And I know something that a lot of times people are curious about are the OER resources that we used. And I just want to let you know that Kathy and I are going to upload these slides to the meeting chat. And in the notes for this particular slide 12, we listed all of the primary open education resources that we use for these courses. For example, for the Principles of Accounting course, we found an open education resource called Accounting Principles, a Business Perspective on Financial Accounting. We also use some content from Financial Accounting course by Lumen Learning. We use some content from Introduction to Communication by Lumen Learning. There was also there was a personal finance OER that we used, and we used some pieces of a sailor text called Stand Up, Speak Out, because there was a communication aspect to this course. Even though it was accounting, it was like communicating accounting information. And then also some pieces of technical writing course from Lumen Learning. So we have all of those listed with the attributions, for all of the courses in the notes for slide 12. Moving on, something that was a little bit challenging for us was determining the best way or the right way to provide attributions to the creators of the open education resources that we used. At WGU, we have a role, we have learning resource specialists who are experts in learning resources, and the learning resource specialist for these projects worked with our legal team to come up with the best way to provide attribution. And what we did is on each page of the course, at the bottom of the page, we provided attributions to every single resource that was used on the page. And we also, at the beginning of the courses, there was an introduction area that had information about the learning resources. And for all of the primary OER that we used for that course, we listed it there also. The images for these courses were also open resources. So each image was tagged, we logged it, tagged it with the attribution. And then also probably all of these courses, in addition to the open education resources, in order to make sure that the content was fully supported and had everything that we needed, we also pulled in resources from our library. And that might be an article, it might be a lynda.com video, or actually it's LinkedIn learning video, or it could even be like a chapter or a section of an ebook. And when we pulled that in, or we actually linked out to it, we provided citations for any resources from the library at the bottom of each page also, to make it really clear to students exactly where all of the content came from. So I'll just stop for just a second before Kathy gets into some really interesting data again, and give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have any.
I have one. Hi, this is Sarah Burkhead-Whittle. I'm at NSU, and I'm a librarian, and we're in the process of working on more OER resources that we can provide to help with different content areas. And I didn't know, or maybe you can talk about this later. It doesn't have to be now, but this has raised a flag that I wanted to be able to thank you for, knowing that the librarians are there to help, and the resources that we have to benefit our faculty and our students across different institutions, of course. But I didn't know if you all found that there were other ways you could partner with librarians to identify OER, either from the library or how they might reach out to you guys in your different subject areas, like with you all being on the business side of things.
Um, that is it. I mean, so I've worked before at a traditional university where we definitely had a relation, the instructional design, department definitely had a strong relationship with the library because it's really like there are two sides, to support the use of open education resources and other resources. But in this particular project, honestly, we didn't really work with the librarians because I think it was primarily, well, first of all, we have learning resource specialists who do work closely with librarians, and they are experts in all learning resources. So that might be Pearson textbooks or Cengage textbooks or any type of resource. They also often help us curate resources from our library. And so I mean, we use the learning resource specialist as opposed to the librarian. And we at WGU, we have 120,000 students, and at the time that we were working on this project, we had 2 librarians. So they're pretty focused on, they're pretty focused on students. So,
Sure.
And we have learning resource specialists, so we leverage them. But definitely, librarians can be really, they have they have a lot of knowledge of open education resources. And, like I said, we also pulled in library resources, that we're paying for already, right? So, why not pull them into the courses where we could use them?
Very good. I appreciate your extra feedback. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
And just my 2 cents, this is Kathy, I think it would be absolutely critical for any institution looking to use OER to use their library resources and their librarian to help with OER. There are so many critical steps. So
I agree with you, but thank you for that unsolicited bit of encouragement there.
You're welcome. This is my favorite page. These are our results and our outcomes, just some data that we've collected. The CCR, or the percentage that you see here, stands for course completion rate. And that is the completion rate of the course within the student's 6-month term that they started and they finished, passed the assessment within that term. We live and die by one of this measurement, as well as many others. We're very data rich at WGU. But you can see in the first column is our starting, what it was pre in our baseline measurement, what it was before we opened it up and tore up the course and created a new one. I've got a measurement in here of February, which would be about 7 months past launch, which would be at least a full term and a month for us to gather the data, the early results of our work. You can see that microeconomics went down a couple percentage points, and we were starting to see the fruits of our labors. In December of 2009, 1 year later, it goes up quite a bit. And so we've got some nice increases in the second last column. Just a note, I got to participate in business law and also principles of finance. As I look at these numbers from a manager within WGU, anytime we can go 1 percentage point up, given our volume, it is super, super incredible. It's a great step forward. So this means a lot for our success of our students. Business law wasn't always looking so pretty for a while. In the first 3 months, it was underperforming the previous course. And so we made a decision to open that back up and do some more work on it. We all know that curriculum is fluid. We peered and touched almost everything. We worked closely with our Q&A, and we added more OER content. We refined it. We edited our assessment items. We did a lot of work, not once, but twice. That's where we get to that 6.5%. And we're pretty proud of that because business law is not easy. The principles of finance is our pride and joy. What I can't say that we can totally attribute that the content, that it was just the revision. What we did in there is that when we did that benchmark, like what Ginger talked about, we were kind of like overbuilt and more like a junior senior level type course once we really looked at it and compared it and benchmarked it to other schools. So we brought that down a little bit. And so we're seeing that students being able to consume that content very well. We used a lot of questions in that course. We used a baseline of questions. We found a plethora of resources, questions, quizzes that we could use as a baseline and maybe tweaked a little bit and gave to our students to build a nice set of practice formative type of assessment for them. One thing I didn't mention from the top is that the result, and usually I have it right at the bottom, I don't know how I missed that. One of the things that we do at WGEU is included in a student's 6-month term tuition are all the textbooks. We call them LR, learning resources. We absorb the cost for that for our students. And so as we no longer were paying a vendor for the learning resources, we calculated that within 1 year, we saved about $500,000. Ginger and I are still waiting for our bonuses, but we're still hopeful. Not only, does that help our students and help WGU, it helps WGU keep our tuition low for our students. So pretty critical. Any questions on this slide? Great. Ginger, want to talk about successes?
Absolutely. So in addition to the money, it is a big success because we do, actually pay a lot of attention to costs at WGU because we want to keep tuition low. Like we've had a tuition increase the last maybe 2 years, but prior to that, we went like 7 or 8 years and didn't have any tuition increases. And it's something that we really try hard, to focus on. So that was big. That was a big win using the OER to save money. But I mean, as an instructional designer and, someone with a background in education, for me, the biggest success was the customization. In other projects that we've worked on, if we're using a traditional textbook, there are always parts of the textbook that don't really align with the course. You want students to, read chapter 7, but there's parts of chapter 7 that don't align with your learning objectives or outcomes. And, and it's hard, especially in an online university to, be really specific about the parts of the chapter that students need to read. So the ability to customize and exclude content that was not aligned with their outcomes. So we're using open education resource. If there's part of the chapter that didn't align with, our learning outcomes, we didn't include it. So students, didn't read it. And also, we had the ability to supplement content wherever we needed. As we had primary learning or OER, but in a module, if all of the scope details, everything that we wanted in the course wasn't in that particular open education resource, sometimes we created new content. We had our subject matter experts actually write original content to address that. Sometimes we linked out to library resources. Other times we brought in different OER from a different source. Or again, we linked out to content in some cases. So, in the end, each module had exactly what students needed, to completely cover all of the scope that we wanted, and nothing more. Like didn't have other things that were unrelated to our outcomes. So for me, that was the biggest win. Also, it gave us an opportunity to really create good alignment between the formative assessment and the high stakes assessment. Again, at WGU, we're competency based. So our assessment items are very highly guarded and secure because what students need to do at WGU to pass a course is pass the assessment. So we don't use high stakes items that come from any vendor, for example, if we're using the Pearson text, we wouldn't use the Pearson test items from the instructor bank for our high stake items, because they're open and available for people to see. So sometimes it's a struggle, if we are using, like, let's say a Pearson or McGraw-Hill textbook, and we're using their items for formative assessment, sometimes there can be misalignment between the high stakes items. For example, the high stake items might have, use a different term than, the formative assessment uses. So being able to develop the curriculum, develop the formative assessment, and develop the high stakes assessment all together was a big win for us, because it really helped with alignment, and also just making sure that the assessment was fully supported. Because, sometimes if you're writing, if you're having the highest stakes assessment items developed according to the outcomes and learning objectives, it's possible that there wouldn't be any formative items that fully support certain aspects. So that was a really big win in this project, and I think that's why we saw, course completion go up in a lot of these courses. Other wins include, we moved to a modular format, which made it easier for us, or more efficient for us, to gather data on how students were performing in each module. So, we could drill down and see where students maybe were struggling in a module, so that we could go back and add content, or look at the alignment, or try to figure out what was going on there. That was another success. And then also, just in general, moving the courses into our Acrobatic Smart Author platform, which has really good analytics, helped us have better back-end analytical data to analyze on student performance. But as you know, the challenges, along with great success comes challenges, and we definitely struggled our way through a lot of aspects of this project, primarily, figuring out the attribution. That was really, quite a puzzle for us in the beginning, because we wanted to make sure that we did it right. So it took us a little while to figure that out. Something that we're actually still struggling with is republication. So we built our courses in our course authoring platform, and, while we have attributions to the sources that we used, we haven't yet figured out the best way to republish them, because we kind of made things complicated by adding the library resources into the courses. So it's a mix of OER and copyrighted material, and so we're still trying to figure out the best way to republish it. Also, I'm sure if you've ever worked on a project with open education resources, the curation part of it was it's always a struggle. There's so many resources out there in the world, which is great, but trying to review them and curate them and find the high quality ones that aligned with our outcomes was time consuming and challenging. Also, as a part of this process, we had all new design documents. So our course design document was new. The template, the Word template that we used to develop the course on paper before we built it was new. So that was a challenge for us, getting used to these new documents, and in some cases we have iterated on them quite a bit since that process. But it definitely did present a challenge at the time that we were working on the project. Also, the timeline was probably the biggest challenge. Our timeline allowed for 2.5, we needed to complete 2.5 modules per week. And that was really ambitious, really ambitious schedule. That included the course and assessment. And that was for the initial build. But then even when we were, we'd get it back from QA and editing, and we needed to review the changes and make them, we didn't get extra time really for that. We were just taking away from the 2.5, from the time for the next modules. Another struggle was consistency in editing. Because we used an agile process, the editors were editing a unit at a time. So we'd send, unit 1 to editing, and then when we'd send unit 2 to editing, sometimes we would get a different editor. And although we have a style guide for the editors, there's, I think, always a bit of interpretation when it comes to editing. And so sometimes we found out when we did our final review in Smart Author that sometimes there were some inconsistencies that we needed to address. And mostly in capitalization of terms, proper nouns and things like that. So that was, a challenge. And then also making changes to modules after they were handed off to the build instructional designer. So there were a couple cases where, we handed unit 1 to the build instructional designer and they're putting it in the platform. Meanwhile, a few weeks later, we're on, module 5, and we realized that we need to change something in module 1. And that was a little bit tricky, trying to figure out the best way to do that. So, I think just a byproduct of using an agile process instead of, waiting until the whole course was developed on paper before we started building any of it. So those were, the challenges that stood out the most. And that's really the end of our presentation. So we're interested in any questions that you have. We have, a bit of time before the end of the session, and just would really like to entertain any questions that you have.
Or discussion.
Or discussion, yeah.
Is everybody using OER? If you're talking, you're on mute.
Something that I could add to this, if we don't have any questions right this second. So this is a project that we did 2018, right, Kathy?
Yep. 2 years ago, we started in just about now.
Yeah. So, what's happened since this process? We recently are actually getting ready to launch a lot of new courses, a new program, as a matter of fact. And we iterated on this process in this most recent group, this project. And we have, I think, 27 new courses that are launching March 1st. And at least half of them also use open education resources. And we actually used, because we realized, some of the time challenges, we're actually using vendors to help us with the OER curation and content writing. And but we definitely used what we learned in this process that Kathy and I were talking about in this project particularly, and have used that in this most recent project. And I see now we have some comments coming in here.
Yep, accessibility being the greatest concern. And I think that's where you work closely with the library or your experts.
Yeah, and I think actually maybe we had the slide in here about that originally, but that was something else that we did for every, all of the OER that we were using. Part of our project was to make it accessible. So I worked on the accounting projects, and we were using a PDF of accounting text, and it had tables and things for financial statements. And we rebuilt every single one of those tables in the learning platform to make sure that, the content was accessible by screen readers. And so, adding alternative text and things like that. It was it was time consuming, and but it was something that we needed to do as a part of the project.
And the IDs in these projects were the ones that were probably slammed the hardest and carried the biggest burden of the workload. And many times they would, the manager was recognizing it. They were working until 7 or 8 o'clock, especially on a Friday evening on a holiday weekend. And she said, that's enough. And they went and brought another ID in to help with that workload. our challenge has been instructors, just to comment in here, Googling for resources rather than working with OER. Yeah, Google.
Yeah.
Ouch. I think it would be wise to kind of be proactive and provide some resources and some information up front for anybody considering using it. But it's always hard to lasso in course instructors.
Yeah. And it's someone asked, did you link to the OER within your learning management system or take portions into your course? Whenever possible, we actually chose to ingest it into our course because we wanted to have control over it. We were worried that if we linked out only, we didn't, it could be changed. And then maybe it wouldn't align with our assessments anymore, if it was changed. So we ingested it into our LMS in every case that we could. If the license, if there were some kind of license restrictions or something, we did link out, and we definitely linked out to our library stuff, to our library resources. But the OER, for the most part, we ingested it.
Yeah. We have in our healthcare management program right now, we're bumping into some content that's outdated, and we know that the content in healthcare changes rapidly, and so we're exploring 3 courses, one in technology, one in data management, 3 main ones. And one of the things that we're charged with is kind of pulling out some of the videos and some of the content areas that are outdated and replacing it with OER as a way to solve our problem, even though we do have a vendor that supplies content to us. So it's a great way to even keep your resources current.
Yeah, and that was one of the ways that we remixed the OER was updating it, because some of the OERs were a few years old. And so some of the, examples, business case, where they talk about a specific instance to make a point, were outdated. And that's actually one of the areas that we used our subject matter experts to update those examples quite often.
Yep. And I will, in some cases, we had some links in business law, links to YouTube videos. We didn't want to, we had no choice. And we brought those in, and I think it might have been within the first 9 months, one of them might have gone dead. But right away, the faculty member recognized it and sent over a replacement, which we vetted on our side and then inserted into the course. So we want to always be very, very careful with that. And I think that they actually remove more of those by finding some other videos or sources. But for time constraints within the project, we resorted to YouTube. But it was a consistent YouTube channel, same instructor.
Yeah, we had some pretty high standards if we used YouTube. We wanted to make sure that it was a channel that seemed stable, that we felt like the videos wouldn't be taken down. And also we needed to make sure that the closed captions were, that they were accurate. Like we have a high threshold for that. So if the video didn't have accurate captioning, we wouldn't use it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have about 5 minutes left. Just wondering again if there are any questions.
Ginger, do you want to upload the PowerPoint so everybody has access? And remember, in slide 12, we put a list of all of, or a big chunk of the resources we used in a few of our courses. So take a look at that. As you look through that, feel free to reach out to either Ginger or I. We wish you great success in figuring out your OER endeavor and hope that you can get the results that we have. How did you build trust or convince faculty that you know what is best for their course? I would say that started by bringing them in when we were first designing the course. I think when they first came in as SMEs and we told them we were going to use OER, they were like, oh my God. But I think as a team, we started to look at the resources that were out there, viable resources, knowing that we could pull them down and edit them and make them work and make them better rather than starting from scratch, went a long way with them. I don't hear anything negative at this point about the use of OER, and I think it's been a great benefit for all of us. Ginger, have you heard anything?
I mean, so we have the disaggregated faculty model. So we have a program development department, with instructional designers, assessment developers, program managers. And then, we have the course instructors who are the subject matter experts who teach our courses. And I think, I don't know, it's something that we really work hard on, building trust with our course instructors, because we, on pretty much every design and development project we use, that we have, we use our course instructors as subject matter experts. We also, on a project, we might have one course instructor, an evaluator, and then also an external SME, because we want to have like well-rounded perspective. But we try to build trust with them by having them be part of our process and making sure that they're represented. But it's not it's not a perfect process, and it's something that we're definitely still working on all the time to try to build that trust.
Certainly a change management process, and go grab your folks that are interested in doing it and let them carve the way, let them others see their successes. So one step, baby step.
You're welcome.
Well, I think we've come to the end.
I think so. Thank you, everyone.
This has been great information.
Thanks. We're glad you enjoyed it.
I want to thank both Kathy and Ginger for sharing this with us. That's great. Thank you for doing that. And folks, you've got 2 more sessions for the conference left. I hope you all show up for that, support the presenters, and of course, learn something good. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.